You might have saw Amber. She's the Scoutmaster for 29.
Oh, okay.
But I will be there this next induction in a couple weekends.
Gotcha. That may have been it. Yeah. We have a special bond with the new girls troops. We're all, and Scouts BSA in general, but especially the girl troops. So we all kind of know each other.
We were there from day one. So Amber Ackerman's our Scoutmaster. And we were there February 1st, 2019.
Right.
Going strong. Already have one eagle.
Hey.
Eagle in February.
That's great. Yeah, and I just saw Dawn chimed in the chat. That's good. So we've got a good mix here. So this is good information. So why don't we go ahead and get started, just because everybody's time is important and we've got a lot to cover. And I want this to kind of be a discussion panel. I put together a PowerPoint slideshow, and Tina's going to help me, flow through it. But anytime you have questions, throw it in the chat or, chime in. The way I see it, we're all in this together and we can all learn from each other. That's how we grow, and that's how we provide a better program for the Scouts. So go ahead, Tina, and hit the first slide, if you will. All right. Try to keep it simple. Who, what, where, when, and why, all that good stuff. So as you guys know, I don't have to preach to you. So some of this, I'm not even going to get into much in the details, because we're all here to improve the program and to be there for our boys and our girls, from kindergarten all the way up to the 80-year-olds. We're all Scouts. So keep going, Tina. All right. Some of this, and probably, some of what I'm going to be talking about is how to plan a successful year and things you can do. And especially for the newer troops just rolling, when you're a troop that's established and been around forever, you have a system in place, and you have we go here every March, we go here every fall, we always do Okefenokee, we always do whatever it is, Northern Tier once a year, sea base, that sort of thing. But for the newer troops, it's good to know, hey, just baby steps. How do we get started? And we need to remind ourselves that who are we here for? We're here for the Scouts. We're here for the youth. Scouts is youth-led. And I had this discussion with a leader a while back. They said, it's youth-led. And I said, I agree completely, but we need to give them the tools so they can lead properly. We need to give them the training. As this slide says, the program engages all ages. So the Tiger Cub, or not even Tiger anymore, even kindergartners all the way up. So we need to make sure we have a plan in place for everybody. And then the last part of this slideshow, like I mentioned just a minute ago, should be driven by the Scouts. And that is key. Early on, when you're just first starting, they don't know what they're doing. But as they get more and more used to it, we can sit on our hands even more. So go ahead and shift it on over, Tina. All right. What are we doing? What are some of the things that we offer? I love this part in here. It says, we all sing from the same hymnal. Thank you, Lord Baden-Powell. Got us on the right track well over 100 years ago, and we're still going strong. I'm going to hit on some of the high points here when you're planning out a year. High adventure bases. Everybody knows there's the big four now, if you will. If you haven't done it yet, get on a trek and do Philmont. Try to get that involved. If you've got a newer troop, they may not know what it is, but Philmont's always good. Northern Tier, you'll see in some slides further on down. We've had a girls troop go to Northern Tier. Obviously, the boys have been there quite a few times. Then you've got the Jamboree. Now, unfortunately, I've been to 4 Jamborees, and the one that's supposed to happen this summer had to be postponed, and that's largely due to obviously COVID. And we're not sure if they're going to move it to next year. I haven't heard anything yet, but that would be nice. So that's a huge thing. If you want to go 50,000 Scouts, it's a great way to network with Scouts all over the nation, and it's a lot of fun. And then, of course, Sea Base, if you like to do that type of thing, obviously Sea Base is phenomenal, and it's a chance of a lifetime to go. And I think I mentioned Northern Tier. You can do that summer or winter, so keep that in mind. Then we've got, yes.
How do you know when those are happening, or find out what the schedules are?
Well, I would go to, it depends on which one you're looking at. They all have real strong social media and websites.
Okay.
So I would go to the websites and look. For the National Jamboree, you can go look at Atlanta Area Council's website, and we'll try to keep that updated when we know more. Right now, we're on hold until National makes a decision. We can't do much. But Philmont, there's a lot of leaders, and if you want, we can get you in touch with somebody that can help you. There's a lot of leaders that do Philmont every year. So you may want to try to find some leaders that are going, and that's you bring up a good point. A lot of times you don't have enough to make a full crew for one of these high adventures, but you can take 2 scouts and put them in with another troop. And it doesn't even have to be an Atlanta Area Council. It could be Northeast Georgia Council. You can reach outside and go to the North Georgia area and try to find somebody. Hiking obviously is the big thing, and start with baby steps. You know, I don't know how many of you have a hiking program, but it's always good to have a few leaders that can handle a hiking program. For our troop, we started out just hiking around Kennesaw Mountain and the trails around Chattahoochee. And then we're going to plan our first camp out overnight backpacking to Pine Mountain, because that's, like Michael French said, always need another scout to join High Adventure. So High Adventure is just a supplement, the main troop program. But backpacking, if you're interested, there's plenty of people that can help you there. But Pine Mountain is a good first backpacking trip because it gets the scouts outdoors, but it's not too big of a challenge. So I guess where I'm going with that is I wouldn't just jump in and say, we're going to go do the Appalachian Trail, for the next week and not have a clue on what you're doing. You don't want to start out there. And I know right now with COVID, a lot of that shut down, and the shuttle buses and the shuttle services aren't working. So, that is the key. The last thing on the slideshow, what's your troop's flavor? We have some troops that are basically backpacking troops, some that are high adventure type troops, some that do local camping. Anybody have any, what does your troop do? I'm curious to know, what are you kind of centered around? Chime in or put in the chat, either way. Any backpacking troops out there?
Actually, I was going to throw in that Troop 631, we have probably a pretty decent variety. We do have lots of high adventure folks, both sea-based, and we've had a few that have been Philmont. And then the rest of our activities, we try to vary them. We've gone canoeing in the Okefenokee. We've gone hiking up at Camp Vogel and in the North Georgia mountains. We have our polar bear activities around November up at Black Rock. And so we try and vary them. We've even done biking on the Silver Comet all the way out to Alabama and back. So it really is whatever the boys have interest in. And I say the boys, I spend more time with the boys troop, so pardon me. We have boys. I am an assistant scoutmaster for the girls troop, but I spend way more time with the boys between that and the district. But certainly they kind of pick out what they want to do and what they have energy for, and then we go figure out how to do it as the adult leaders.
I'm glad you bring that up, and Donna and Michael French just both chimed in. Developing youth leadership is key. And then also, of course, Donna would bring this up, and she's right, staffing Woodruff, shameless plug there for Woodruff Camp, and also Burt Adams. And then another big thing is NYLT. I've got a lot of scouts that have been to NYLT and absolutely love it. They've got the NYLT bug. They go one time and now they've been on staff. I've got one girl that's staffed. This will be her 3rd time. So as a troop, you can promote that as another adventure and another thing that the scouts can do that's on an individual basis. But it's always nice if you get 2 or 3 from the same troop to go. At least they feel like they're not there completely alone. So NYLT is huge. That has really been a big benefit for our scouts. And then they come back and lead the troop. I'll notice at a troop meeting, all of a sudden, I've got 4 scouts standing in front of the troop singing a song, and they're all doing the choreography, and they all know it, and they've got such energy. And it's an NYLT song that they learned. And they share it with the kids. And then the kids are like, well, what was that? How do I get that? How do I get that excitement? So that's a good point. Thanks. Let's go to the next slide, Tina, if you would. There we go. Talking about that. There's nothing better in Philmont. If you haven't been, obviously you need to go at some point. But that is something you can offer with the troop, but it shouldn't be the mainstay. That's just kind of the cream on the crop. I think we have a question in the chat about NYLT. We'll help you with that. Remind us or send an email. We can put you in touch with the people. We can help you, get some inroads. Then you get into C-Base. Obviously, a chance of a lifetime to do something like that. Some of these slides didn't show up. There's a girls troop that was down there. So it's a great program. I mean, they got hit pretty hard with the hurricane that came through a while back, but back up and running. And just so if anybody knows, I'm pretty plugged in with Foothills, and there are times when the leaders will say, I've got 2 more spots. So you may want to reach out to your other people and like, I've got 2 spots for Northern Tier, or we're trying to fill up a crew at Philmont. Anybody want to go? You have anybody that may be interested? So if you put one of these events together and you've got extra slots, offer it to the other troops and see if they want to take you up on it. It's always nice to go with people you know are from the same council. All right, Tina, keep going. And crews and Sea Scouts too. Sea Scouts at Cabela's up in Ackworth is pretty strong. They've got a pretty good program if you're on the northwest side of town. Then SHIP 2020. Then we get into my favorite thing. Everybody has their thing they like to do. I'm really big on the jamborees, and I promote that heavily with my troops. At 1011, where I'm an ASM, the last 2 times I've been involved, we've had 12 scouts go from the troop. Granted, we're a big troop, but I really promote it and talk about all the fun things, and it's a chance of a lifetime. So if you haven't done the summit for a jamboree, give it a shot, or a summit for the week and do it as a high adventure summer camp. It's an amazing place. If you haven't been there, you need to give it a try. And lots to do from everything. And in these slideshows, the picture on the top right, you don't need to go back, was an all-girls scout troop from South Korea. And it was just neat to see them with all the enthusiasm. Then, of course, you get into Northern Tier. And if you don't like cold weather, this may not be the place for you in the winter. But you can go in the summer. They have a summer program. My scouts always told me, I never understood it. They said, it's kind of boring. All you do is you canoe across a lake, you pick up your canoe or your kayak, you set up a tent, then you do it again. Then you do it again. I said, you're in God's country. Enjoy it. It's a chance of a lifetime. So if you haven't, check them out. They're a really good, a great avenue. All right, keep going. Now we get into some of the specifics. Program planning should happen continuously at the PLC level. I don't know about you, but with our troop, we try to have a PLC once a month. Everybody's familiar with that, Patrol Leader Council. That's where the senior youth get together. We usually have it before a troop meeting, unless it's the annual planning meeting, then that's a separate night. And let the scouts plan the monthly troop themes, which is key. Like this month, the girls came up with pioneering as their theme for the month. So they're doing lashing and lashing games and different knots and things like that. Anybody else have, how do you handle that? How do you handle PLCs? I'd love some feedback and some other opinions.
We also have an adult planning meeting in addition to the PLC meeting.
Yep. Yeah, we do that as an ASM meeting, but it's the same type thing.
It's a great way to get your adults out of the way to let the scouts actually lead the PLC too.
And that's actually a great point, Tina. For our annual planning, it always takes place on our camp out in August. And there's 2 reasons for that, because the youth that are attending that camp are usually they're the ones who are active. So we have a standing rule that prior the month or so prior, that the youth can say what they want to do, where they want to go. If it's a new place, it has to be pre-vetted by the scoutmaster. But at that annual planning conference, the youth are the ones who talk. There's an express rule that the adults cannot talk, or the scoutmaster will ask them to leave. So the goal of the annual planning conference is twofold. The youth say what they want to do and where they want to go. After that information is collected at the next adult leaders meeting, then we match up the locations with the activities as what we can support as a committee, but the annual plans are set up by the youth, period.
Michael, I think that's a great point. The one thing I will caution, or just you're from 204 with Ted and Don, a well-established troop with a long history and systems and protocols in place. When we first started, and for some of these other troops just getting rolling, the parents and the adult leaders have to have a little more involvement until the scouts learn, because one year we let the boys just decide what they wanted to do, and they picked snowmobiling in the Colorado Rockies and, you know, deep sea fishing in Barbados and all these things that were just not feasible. So what I did with my troop early on was I gave them a list of 50 items that I thought were doable for a troop, and I had the scouts vote on it. Rank your top 10. And then I gave that list to the PLC, to the youth leaders at the SBL in particular, and said, these are your top 10. You guys kind of figure it out and come up with a plan. Just giving them guidance is what worked for us early on. Now that we'll have our third PLC and annual planning meeting, the scouts can completely run it, but they have the training now to know what to do.
I was going to chime in with Michael that our Troop 631 is pretty much very similar, except we actually have the meeting on the same day, and the scouts go off in their area and they make their plan, and the adults, we sit together and we talk about all the financials and all the corny, boring things that no one really wants to talk about, but has to be done. And then the scouts come back and present their proposal for the year. And then we start to marry up. Okay, so you want to go someplace that is 3.5 hours drive away. Is that going to be feasible for Friday afternoon camp out when folks just get out of school at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening? And right. So it's a give and take. And again, they learn, hey, sometimes we have to give on some of these, and we move things around. So for that 3.5 hour drive, we might move that to a spring break or winter break or something that is a little bit more feasible. But I think that gives them the range to make and dream a little bit more than what adults would let them dream. Then we just have to figure out how to put it together.
Yeah, right now with our troop, everybody wants to be a part of a girls only troop. So I've got leaders and parents coming out of the woodwork that want to get the patch, but it's like, you have to own an event. If you're going to be a leader with us, you need to get the training, and you need, okay, which camp out are you going to run? The youth are in charge, but we need an adult to oversee it, because I like what 204 has been doing, and they did it at 144 way back when, an AIA meeting. And I'll just briefly discuss that. And I've used that with my troop, is that's a chance for everybody, all interested adults, right? That's what it stands for. So we started doing that, where you've got parents that know nothing about scouts, brand new to it, and they want to get involved, but they're not ready to buy a uniform and get trained. Well, they can come to that meeting and kind of see what we're about and see where they can get plugged in. Maybe when we did that, one mom said, I did camp cards for my pack, I'll do it for the troop. So that planning meeting, we found a camp card, czar, just by doing that. So I think that's critical, is to get, people involved.
One last point on an annual plan. The most important part of the annual plan is to publish it and stick to it. Do not miss a date. Do not move a date. Once it's written and it's an annual thing. And I liken it a lot to people that when you join a Little League baseball team, on day one, the coach hands you a game schedule and says, you got to be here at this point in time. Well, treat your annual plan the same way. You're joining a team, and here are the game days. Plan accordingly to be at these game days. And that will enhance the program, and the youth will start getting more out of it. And it helps people plan.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think somebody had in the chat, what patch are you referring to? I'm not sure who that question was for. Oh, the troop patch. Yeah. Like for us, 2019, people want to be a part, especially for us being a large girls troop, people want to be a part and get the patch and, say they were a part of it, which is fine, but they need to get involved. We don't need them in name only, especially, in Scouts BSA. We don't need any helicopter parents or helicopter leaders. And we also don't need the leaders that treat it like Cub Scouts and just tell the youth what to do. They've got to learn to back off. Unless somebody's going to get hurt, we stay out of the way. You know the old saying in Scouts, sit on your hands. So we have to remind them of that. And that's been an issue with some of our dads at summer camp. They want to come up for 2 nights, but then their youth want to leave when they leave. And, and that's a Tuesday night, and it creates a cancer that grows. So we're going to start doing, and what we've done is if parents want to visit at camp night, do it on Friday night, for the closing campfire. Say, if your parents want to come visit and see what it's about, Friday night. And worst case, if they want to go home, we're all leaving Saturday morning. So it's not like it was Tuesday and it disrupts the whole troop, because we have had that issue. And with cell phones and with smartphones, you'll have a parent show up at Woodruff. I'm here to pick up Jimmy. What do you mean? They called, they're homesick. I'm here to get them. At that point, they've already seen mom and dad and the cat's out of the bag. So I think we have to be careful with the cell phones. And I know there's no easy answer for that. We could have a year-long discussion on that. But let's go ahead and keep moving to the next slide, if you would. All right, now we get into, I'd love to hear what you guys are doing. I wanted to make sure to give a shout out to Powderhorn. That's obviously a lot of fun and a good program. For us, we as adults, we do SWC, Scouter Winter Campout. That's a Cobb County Colossal Cobb thing, where in January of every year we camp at Woodruff and we practice our scouting skills in cold weather. It was started, 53 years ago, because scouts would not camp from October to March because it was too cold. And so I've been to 9 or 10 of them. It's a great chance to meet other scout leaders, bounce off ideas. Where do you go? Where are you going to summer camp? What are your high adventures? And, I invite my friends from even Northern Ridge, or Southern Crescent or wherever. You're all welcome. Come camp with us. So that's kind of fun. Where can you get information on planning these things? I think Roundtable is key. We have a lot of troops that don't do Roundtable, and then they wonder why they're not growing and they miss out on opportunities. Like, I want to remind everybody, and I was told to remind you guys again, the big Camper All Camp Out coming up next March 18th through the 20th. I'm doing that from memory. Yep. 18th through the 20th of 2022 at Bird Adams. If you went to the one we had back in 2019, that was the first camp out for my girls ever. And they were on the stage because, there were 5,000 people there. I have a question. What is Roundtable? Oh, that's a great question. Roundtable is an adult leaders meeting once a month. For Foothills, it's the first Thursday of the month where we get together. We had been meeting at a local church until Zoom. So we've been doing Zoom meetings, but we're going to go back to meeting locally again. And it's a chance to have an opening. Then you have a topic, a hard rock topic, and then you go into breakouts like we're doing now. So it's kind of like the meeting we just had, but on a little bit of a different schedule. But that's really a great way to learn where everybody's going. Summer camp meeting and other leaders, that's a good place. Where can you get good information? Summer camp meetings or meetings like this. Blogs, obviously, Brian on scouting, if you're not familiar with him, he offers a lot of good stuff from a national standpoint, which is good. It doesn't help you here locally, but it is a good national thing. The annual program Kickoff, like we're doing now, is obviously a great way to get it. And then, the new parents, you got to reach out to them and communicate. I don't know about you guys, but when a new scout crosses over, like Michael said, we try to give them the calendar. This is what we're doing this year. Go ahead and plan accordingly. These are the events. This is our summer camp. This is when this is due. This is when that's due. And also try to have in your annual plans when money is due, because people are a lot less likely to back out on you if they've got money involved. So we have to remind them of that.
Hey, Cass, if I can interrupt you just for a second on that last point. Usually when we bring in those from Cub programs into troops, we try to do it in the spring before they break out for the summer. And the benefit of that is, one, you kind of get them to meet the troop before they actually cross over, maybe on a camp out, and do the crossover at a camp out in the spring. And then the second benefit is you can bring them right into summer camp. And that's an awesome time for a newbie, as we'll call them, to kind of get indoctrinated into how we do it as scouts before we start doing the annual plan for the upcoming scout year.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And one thing that I think Bobby had asked about is a week-by-week program guide, especially for the first years. And if anybody's interested, I put my email address in the chat, or you can find me online or go to the troop website. We have a first-year program and we have a plan in place, and it's structured for basically 4 months, the first 4 months of the Scouts' life in the troop. And the idea is to kind of get them caught up on advancement and ranks and develop that patrol mentality. We've got 11 girls right now going through the first year program. So if you want me to send it to you, it's something we give out when they cross over or when they join the troop, and we give them the information about the troop, basically our syllabus and our covenants, if you will. And then we give them the calendar, and then we also give them the first year program. One change we've made to that program is with planning, we don't have the dates on there because with COVID, there may be a spike or something may change. And so if you have a 4-month plan and it changes by 1 week because of COVID, then the whole plan is off. So we've learned just to say week 3 instead of week May 12th. So that would be one thing right now with COVID, just in case something changes or your CO says, we're tightening up our belt, you can't meet in person anymore, that sort of thing. So if you're interested, send me an email and I'll be happy to share it with you. I've got it as a PDF, and that'll give you some good ideas on things you can do. For annual planning, I'm assuming everybody does something like what we've got listed here. To KP's point, what I like and what I did is I went through the calendar early on and figured out weekends that would not work for the Scouts just because of, spring, Easter weekend or Christmas break or whatever. There are certain weekends that you are just off the table and you don't even want to have as an available weekend for them. And with us, we've learned that, especially for a girls troop, if you don't have female leaders that'll camp, you don't have a troop. And that's been the issue with a lot of I get calls from a lot of girl troops that want to get started or are struggling. And I tell them, you've got to find females that'll camp, that aren't afraid to get their fingernails dirty. I mean, and that goes for guys too. I had a dad drop his daughter off at camp last weekend when we were at aquatics base, and he said, you guys have fun. I'm going to go enjoy my warm shower. I was like, seriously, you're an Eagle Scout and you're saying that? Come on, you should be here with us. If it had been a mom, I would have stopped him and said, no, we need you. I don't really need dads as much, but on a girls troop, you got to have females that are registered or at least have YPT and will follow the rules and can go. So that plays a little bit into your annual planning from our standpoint. This is kind of what we've done in the past. And some of this I got from Greg Becker. You guys know him. He shared his PowerPoint. So some of this is his information. To KP's point, like we do a Sapelo trip. I've done that with the boys troop, but that can't be done over a weekend. That has to be, winter break or something like that. It has to be a longer weekend. Memorial Day weekend is not a good weekend because everybody's traveling, but you can't expect to get to Sapelo Island, one of the barrier islands, or go to, anywhere. I mean, it's just Pensacola. If you want to do the Navy Museum, you can't do that over a weekend. So you have to plan accordingly. Keep it close. Aquatic space, things like that are always a good place. I'd love some thoughts and some suggestions on Cumberland Island. Yep, that's another one that you just can't do. Okefenokee, you just can't get down there for the weekend. Not going to work. So that has to play into your annual plans. Tybee Island, yep, that's another big one. Where are some of the places you guys go? What are some things that you've seen that you like to do? Maybe throw out some suggestions. Anybody? I don't think you're muted.
I'll throw one in there for you. Troop 772 out of Foothills does Three Forks a lot. And then they have a couple other spots along the Appalachian Trail. One that's good for the younger scouts. And then the older scouts are able to continue on their journey and they'll meet back with them the next Sunday morning. So they kind of form separate patrols, but they start out together, hike out, meet at one location, leave the younger scouts. They kind of have the afternoon to enjoy themselves and do their own cooking. And the older scouts continue on and do another 5 miles to another location to camp, do their cooking and meet back with the younger scouts in the morning. So we have a lot of AT groups AT locations that we like to go. And Okefenokee is a fun one. We've also done a beach trip down to the Panhandle with a venturing crew and our troop. So that was fun.
Some of the other places that Troop 204 goes on a fairly regular basis or semi-regular basis, FDR State Park down by south of Columbus is always a good one. There's a Chickamauga Battlefield up near Tennessee. I mean, these are weekend trips. You know, that's a good one for biking. DeSoto State Park over in just across the border in Alabama, beautiful area. I know for many years we'd go to the summer camp up there. Why is the name escaping me, Kes? Caving, yeah, that's a potential.
Comer
Camp Comer. You know, that's a good place to camp. You don't necessarily have to go to summer camp there because Atlanta Area Council has some of the best summer camps. But there's a lot of Red Top Mountain. There's an permanent orienteering course at Red Top Mountain. You know, good places to camp there. It's a little more populated at Red Top Mountain because it is so close, but these are all things, you know, that are easy to do.
I'll tell you one thing that we've been trying to do with COVID, a lot of people are trying to get out and camp. And so you'll notice the national state parks are pretty full and the primitive campsites are not always available. What we've done is started reaching out to Cobb County for us in Cobb, Park and Rec, and I've got a contact there, and started using some of the facilities they offer. Like our girls are going to go to Stout Farm, which is in Powder Springs, Lithia Springs, and camp there for the weekend. And Cobb County is going to open it up for us, and they'll have trash cans, and it's got restrooms and things like that. But it's someplace the Scouts have never been. And we've done that as we occasionally we'll do a camp out where we tell the Scouts, all right, load everything on the trailer. This is before COVID. And it's kind of like a mystery camp out, which some troops do. But this is where we tell the Scouts, all right, bring your 10 essentials in your backpack and then everything else on the trailer. We'll see you at camp Friday night. And then we tell them when they get to camp, oh, by the way, the trailer had a flat tire. It's not coming. You're on your own. And you need to get to so-and-so. And so it's almost like a wilderness survival. It's just a way to get them. All of a sudden, they're lost and in the woods, and they have to work together as a team and figure out how to spend the night, even knowing that the trailer's 500 yards away, but they don't know that. And so those are the type of things you can do. We also do a weekend with a manhunt game where we send the Scouts out, and then a couple hours later, the leaders go after them. And there's usually 4 or 5 stations they try to find using orienteering, map, and compass. And each station would have a different food, a different ingredient for a menu so they could make their Sunday morning breakfast. And they had to hit all 5 of those. So those are options and plans you can throw out and let the Scouts decide. And, you know, that is the key. Give them options and then they can figure it out. And after a couple of years, they'll decide what they like and don't like. The annual Sham battle that I learned from 144, which is basically a ground up flour type game where you throw them at each other, is a hoot. And I asked my girls about it at the meeting Tuesday night. I said, who would like to do a game where you throw sacks of flour at each other in a field and, you know, you get all messy and you do all kind of, you know, tough stuff. And every one of them raised their hands. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Sounds like fun. Just make sure if you do that game, you have showers available because they will get sticky and nasty.
Got to mix a little cornmeal in with the flour.
Yeah, that's true.
That's huge. That's huge with our troop. You know, there's with some coordination, you could do in the emergency preparedness area a mock disaster. You know, similar to what Kes was saying. You know, I know a couple years back they did a zombie attack. You know, that type of thing for the whole weekend. You know, and you know, get connected to the local, you know, fire department or some of the other, you know, they might have opportunities where your troop can participate in their mass casualty event as the victims. And so that is a great way for the youth to see, you know, the community safety forces in action. That's huge too.
Well, one thing I'm looking through my notes, what we did is we camped at, for some of the people who know, Chapel Knoll, which is owned by Marietta First Baptist. It's where I went growing up. It's like aquatic space up at Altoona, but it's privately owned. But my point to that was we were able to do some water sports, and Saturday during the day, the scouts were able to work on their line and tether and different type of aquatics advancements that they needed, that you really don't get that many chances to do that. So take advantage of it. We did that back in August. So the scouts got to cool off and work on advancement. And they told all their friends, what'd you do last weekend? I was on a kayak on Lake Altoona. What'd you do? I sat and played video games. That's how you recruit. When the kids tell their friends, what did you do? You went caving, you went spelunking in Cumberland Caverns and spent the night in a cave? How do I do that? You know, so your annual plans can help you recruit by getting the scouts excited and involved. A couple other things I want to point out is you need to make sure you have, a couple of Court of Honors on your annual calendar and stick to that. We always have a big one after summer camp. I know for us with summer camp, we try to keep our fees down, and that burned us the first year because we didn't really add any fluff in there. And then we started buying merit badges for 40 scouts that went to camp and all their advancements and everything. And that adds up. Before you know it, it was a $360 bill or whatever. So as a suggestion, maybe throw in $10 extra to cover patches, or it depends on your troop, just so you don't, as a troop, have to eat that cost after summer camp. Oh, Black Rock. Yeah, someone mentioned Black Rock. If you're not familiar with that, that's awesome. Our troop goes there every year. Continental Divide, the highest elevation park in Georgia. That's a beautiful place.
Lake Conesaga is another place that we go. That's usually in August because it's nice and cool when it's so hot down here.
Yeah,
thanks, Ted. I was going to say.
Yeah, Kes, one of the other things that in your planning that you may have to do from the adult side is make sure you're looking at the requirements based on your makeup of your troop or unit, because some of them need hiking at elevation, some of them need canoeing or various activities, and you can kind of guide them towards those activities. Otherwise, they plan kind of the same fun things, but that doesn't necessarily help them with the requirements aspect. And that was an early learning that we had to go back through.
I'm glad you bring that up, KP, because what we've got is now with a bunch of new girls, we've got an ASM that's in charge of advancement, and his job is to pull the scout book report and figure out who needs camping nights, who needs cooking requirements. When we go on these events, we give it to the older scouts first as the first opportunity. You need this for cooking merit badge, or you're a tenderfoot, you need this for second class. And kind of sometimes we'll have campouts. We've even had a camp out before called the makeup camp out for scouts that couldn't go and need a cooking requirement, need to cook for their patrol. So we base the whole weekend around, let's knock out advancement. What do you need? And we always remind the scouts on every single event, bring your scout book. There'll be time to sign some things off. We'll have leaders here to help you. That's another question on the why. I know some troops allow their youth to sign them off, others don't. With us, I've got 5 girls working on Eagle projects, but they're all juniors and seniors in high school, and they really don't have time to work on advancement with the younger scouts just because of, the short window they had to get to Eagle. So we as ASMs are doing most of the sign-offs, but we're starting to implement the older scouts can sign off the younger scouts. That can happen at campouts. That can happen at events, where they can go work to themselves, work aside. We did a camp out at Altoona where one of the ASMs brought his whole axe yard. He has a real nice setup, and 10 girls sat around and spent the afternoon working on their totem chip and their axe yard skills and what they needed for advancement, because you don't do that at a normal meeting. So that's a great point, KP, is try to, involve it around. I will tell you one fun thing we did at Stout Farm when we're going in May. They've got this really big hill in Powder Springs, and we buy a 100-foot section of plastic. We buy out all the baby shampoo. We get a couple of water hoses, and we create this really long water slide. And the kids love it. They have a blast, and they take it back to their friends. You talk about why and recruiting. Scouting is outing, and as my dad would always say, if we're not having fun, the scouts aren't going to have fun. We got to keep it fun. Learn a little bit while you're doing it, but have a good time, because then they'll tell their friends. And I will say we've had a few younger scouts say, this first year program is kind of boring. It feels like schoolwork. And I stepped in and said, see all these high schoolers? They took the same program 2 years ago. So just you know, but I am listening to them. I think we need to make sure we keep that in fun, as engaging, and not just paperwork, because with COVID, they're so tired of screens, at least for schoolwork, that just getting them outside and doing fun stuff is key. Building a fire, having fire games.
I guess there's a great question in the chat by Bobby. Do you set up patrols by age or diversify? I know in our troop, the youth set up their own patrols. The guidance is that, you know, they have to be balanced. They run their own elections. So, you know, the most powerful aspect of the scouting program is the older youth teaching the younger youth. And that's so important because for two things. One, it helps the older youth stay engaged, but it passes the skills along from the older youth to the younger youth, and they'd rather, frankly, listen to them than they would listen to you. You just have to make sure the older youth are trained well. And the other aspect of it is the kids kind of know where they want to go and where they want to go and what they want to do. It's rare that anybody switches patrols, but we have elections twice a year, and you know, patrols can reform every 6 months if so chooses. You know, sometimes a given patrol name will last for years, and other patrols come and go. It's all up to the youth. So, you know, I'm big on the diversity, and that bridging the gap takes care of itself because of the, you know, the older youth helping the younger youth.
Hey, Bobby, I'll chime in and kind of second everything that Michael said, with one slight change, which is as our Webelos, and we have a feeder pack that comes to us, as our Webelos cross over, again, they cross over usually at either a camp out or an event right after a camp out in the spring. And then we have what we call the New Bird Patrol, which is all of those recent crossovers, and they go to summer camp together. The reason why we do that is so that they bond. They already have a bond. They take their bond from Webelos and they build it kind of into the troop. And then as they start to integrate, if you think about it, at summer camp, the older kids are still interacting with some of the younger kids because of meals, because of activities. Okay, so then when we get to the planning session in August, we adopt the new birds into patrols. We let them kind of work with the other scouts, and they figure out which patrol they would have an affinity toward. And so now you've got a little bit of rapport and relationship. It's not just, oh, I'm going wherever my friend goes, but hey, you know what? I got a friend that I've kind of built up. And I think that may help you to kind of bridge that gap into diversifying, as Michael mentioned before. Again, you do want the older scouts teaching the younger scouts, especially as troop guides and the like.
That's a great point. I will tell you, you have to kind of morph it a little bit, Bobby, when you've got a new troop. When I started the troop and we had 50 girls and all of them were scout rank, you know, you don't really have any older girls to lead the younger one. Like Michael said, in a perfect world, you want the older scouts as patrol leaders for a group of younger ones. The one thing we did find is if we weren't careful, if they weren't in a patrol with their friends, they quit coming. So you got to find that balance between having it be youth-led, but a dropout rate that's not where it needs to be. So for us as a troop, we have the Cheeto Puff Armies and the Electric Dragons, and now we've got the She-Wolves and the Narwhal patrols. We've got technically 5 patrols. Our first year patrols, they kind of roll together, but then we allow them to move around at patrol elections. In a perfect world, I'd love to have all my older scouts leading it, but I don't want to chase them off. And if you're not careful and you restructure it too much, they'll say, well, I'm not with Jimmy or I'm not with Sue anymore. I don't want to go to meetings. And if you find out that feedback, then you can say, well, let's give it a chance. A lot of these girls will say, I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends. And I'll point to some of the older girls and I'll say, did you know each other 2 years ago? And they're like, no. And I said, did you go on vacation together last week? Yep. So they've made best friends in this 2-year period. The one thing with girls we have to remind them and be careful is girls tend to be hand holders and lovey-dovey and hang all over each other. And with COVID, I have to constantly remind them, okay, we need to set an example and keep our distance. I know it's tough, but that's the big thing. And the patrols you got to be careful and not let them get too cliquey either. You got to make sure that everyone's included and everyone feels welcome. But that first year camp out and getting the bonding will make a big difference. So for us, we do it a little bit differently. Like our first year patrol will grow up together, and you'll start to see we have instructors and guides, and with our larger troop, we have 2 ASPLs that jump in at the patrol meetings and kind of act like a patrol leader, mentor, if you will. So the older youth are doing that, and they're not the patrol leader, but they're there to mentor the troop and mentor the patrol.
A couple of things. Don't focus on age. If I've got a strong 13, 14-year-old who's willing to lead, by all means, get out of their way and let them lead. The kids know how old they are. If you focus on age, it doesn't help them. And one other thing you have to be careful of, if you've got your patrols by age, it can also become very cliquey, and that can be detrimental. I've seen that in some troops that I've interacted with. So that diversification.
Yeah.
And there's also,
that was the reason why we kind of went to the new birds in the summer. If you think about it, if you go to summer camp, you've earned a couple of merit badges. You've experienced the scout way of doing it, not necessarily the pack way of doing it. And as they start to earn scout and tenderfoot, now you start to see the leaders start to grow out of those ranks. And so as they join a patrol, now they kind of say, oh, wait, I can do this. I don't have to, even though I might be the youngest, I could still be patrol leader. And we try and graduate them as assistant patrol leader, and so on and so forth. And some of them, hey, you know what? You might be best as a scribe. You don't have to be the patrol leader. So you find where their natural abilities and interests are. And if you let them kind of experience it that way, Bobby, I think you'll find you'll have a nice diversification at the end of it. And then you got to start over and do it all over again. So it's always something.
We just had SPL elections, and the older girls didn't want to run. I've got a go-getter 12-year-old that is already a Life Scout. And she said, her mom said she couldn't run because they wanted it for the older girls. I said, no, you're qualified. I approve, run. And she won the elections. She's our new SPL, and she's 12. And she's tiny. She's going to be in charge of girls that are much bigger and more mature, but she's got it. And I'm excited for her. So I agree with you guys completely. We've got some 17-year-old kids that are still kids, and we've got some 11-year-olds that act like adults. And so, it's finding that balance. But I have to remind the scouts, you're their leader, not their boss. It's not a dictatorship. We had one girl we almost had to remove because she tried to just, strong arm everybody everywhere. And we had to remind her, this is a team. You're in charge of the team, but don't go doing that. You're going to chase people off. All right. Do we have more slides? I can't remember. Is it question and answer?
Yep. Just Q&A.
So we've got time. We'll keep kind of, if people need to bag off of this, is there anything I didn't hit or any questions? I will tell you one other thing for the newer troops, especially female troops. Early on, when we had 4 patrols, I assigned an ASM to each patrol to kind of be that patrol leader, because their very first scout meeting ever, nobody knew how to run it. And so early on, we had to have somebody show them, this is how the patrol breakout should go. This is how this should go, until we were able to do our first ILST, which is Introduction to Leadership Training. Then the girls from now on, we don't have that anymore, because the older girls know how to run it, they take it. But I would recommend adding that to your planning. We just had our patrol leader elections, so we're going to be putting a weekend together, or at least an all-day Saturday, for the training for the scouts. Another thing when you're having elections, I think it's critical, is to give a brief summary of what each requirement is involved, and a little form that they sign saying, I commit to 75% of the meetings and 50% of the this and that, so they know what's expected of them. Even an 11-year-old can read that and say, okay, if I want to be patrol leader, I gotta, this is what I have to follow. And I think that's key, is giving them the tools.
There's a question. Do you have a cell phone policy with your troop?
For me, we don't have an official one. I know our boys troop tried for a while taking the cell phones. Everybody put them in a basket when they got to the meeting. The problem with that is they get scratched, they can get beat up. You got to be careful doing that. So we don't encourage cell phones. We don't take them away, but I have had 1 or 2 scouts that would like to go off in the corner and use them. And I'll politely go grab the SPL and say, hey, and just point, and that's all I have to do. Then the youth corrects that issue and just reminds them, put it away during the meeting. You know, that's how we do it. I'd love to know what other people do.
Well, first of all, go someplace where there's no reception. That's the easiest cell phone policy.
Daniel,
we were up at Camp Rainy Mountain, and
Yep.
unless you were last weekend, and unless you were near the dining hall, you didn't have any reception.
You have to hold the flagpole. That's the key.
Yeah. But you know, the cell phone usage has morphed. I mean, it's also a youth protection, can be a youth protection issue. But most youth, they don't wear wristwatches. That's how they tell time. That's got their alarm and how they wake up. It's how they take pictures and share on social media. And you want them to do all of that. Take as many pictures, post to, you know, and send them and aggregate them. You know, they're going to do that. You know, in my venture cruise, we were, you know, at Camp Rainy Mountain last weekend. You know, the older youth are the ones that have the cell phones like this constantly, and you just have to stay on top of them. But if you're providing them a good program, the cell phone shouldn't be an issue. And quite frankly, if you're in a high adventure situation, you can just tell them flat out, that's a nice cell phone, but we're going whitewater rafting, and I don't think you really want that with you. You know, there's a lot of benefit for, you know, and the adults set the example as well. You know, so don't just blame the youth. We're as guilty as adults.
That's a great point. I try to keep my phone in my pocket at all meetings and events, not checking work emails or anything else, because they say, well, Scoutmaster's on his phone.
Yeah, well, you know what? They do bring up that the ASMs are on their phone during meetings when we were in person. But that was because we were in Troop Master signing off on requirements. I was like, I'm happy to put mine back up, but it might not work out well for you. But that's the only reason why we have a phone out, is we are literally with a scout doing it in Troop Master, signing off on a requirement. Everything else is there should be no phones out in times when we're working on activities.
Well, and what we've done with the girls when I see that happen is you get one of the older scouts to get them engaged, pull them away. Like Michael said, you know, hey, they're doing tripod lashing. Let's go work on it. You know, instead of fussing at them, just divert their activity and get them off of what they're doing. I will tell you one other thing. We do encourage, probably 3 times a year, we'll have the scouts come in, especially with a newer troop, and bring their laptops or bring their tablets. And we sit down as a troop meeting and go over Scout Book and how to get logged in and how to use this and how to use that, some basics, so that the youth can take ownership of their advancement and their requirements. Our job is just to approve what they've signed off or what has been signed off. It's not to put it in the system for them. We're not doing them the right service if we, okay, bring me your book, I'll put everything in Scout Book for you. No, that's not how it should work. They should put it all in Scout Book. And then for those of y'all that may not know it, as a leader, you can go in and approve it. Just get their Scout Book, the physical book out, and say, okay, I see where it's signed off. I see you put it in the system, I'll approve it. So that way it's part of the database.
Another example of cell phone usage, I'll use our current SPL as an example. You know, we normally would say the SPL has to have a written meeting plan, and it usually comes in his notebook or on a 3x5 card. Well, youth don't have notebooks or 3x5 cards, but they do have a note-taking app on their phone. So, you know, it's not uncommon to see our SPL out standing in front of the troop with his cell phone like this, because this is where his announcements, this is his notepad. So you have to make some allowances.
Yeah. Lewis brought up a good question, and something, Lewis, that we're doing in Foothills, I don't know how we'd transpose it to Atlanta Area Councils. We're putting together, like a lot of you, we wear many hats. Michael French years ago wrote me in to be potential camping chair, and now I'm program chair for Foothills. And what we're trying to put together is a list and also an interactive map of places you can camp and ideas of places to go in North Georgia. And so you can click on a certain icon and it's, okay, Black Rock, here's who you need to contact. Here's what you can do. Here are the possibilities. So we don't have anything, but that's where Roundtable, that's where getting plugged in with other leaders is key. Because, you know, I hadn't heard about some of these places. I forgot about Rainy Mountain, and, you know, and it's kind of neat. It will remind me, hey, we need to check that out again. So I like your idea. You're welcome to keep my email, keep some of these other leaders that have a lot of information, and just get out with other people and talk. What worked, what didn't work. You know, trying to get to Bird Adams on a Friday night in the rain in rush hour before COVID is a nightmare. So those are one of the things you can learn. And when you've got a Cub Scout that's first grade that gets there at 9 at night and it's raining and they have to set up in the dark, maybe not your best idea, you know. So that's how you learn, because they may not come back. You may chase them off. You may chase off mom and dad more so than anything. Kids aren't that worried about it. It's usually the parents that are freaking out. Most of the kids are pretty resilient. You know, I've had parents call and say, well, it's supposed to rain this weekend. Are we camping or are we canceling? I just laugh and say, scouting is outing. Yeah. Unless it's a Category 5 hurricane or tornado watch, we're going. I'll keep your kids safe, but we're going.
Cass, you bring up the biggest and best point. No one talks about the camp out where the weather was perfect and it was, you know, a cool 70 degrees and there were no bugs, and no one talks about that. They always talk about, hey, remember when we were in that torrential rain, or we thought it was going to, you know, lightning right on top of us, or it was a hurricane, thunder, you know, anything that comes up weather-wise. That's what they talk about. They talk about when when they get a polar bear patch because they're sub 32 degrees up on Black Rock Mountain. Yep. They never talk about Black Rock Mountain any other time of the year except for, can we go during November so we can get our polar bear?
I got 2 hurricane stories for you. In all of my time in scouting here in Atlanta Area Council, we only had one event cancel because of a hurricane, and it was a Foothills district. It was a campery, and there was just, it was going to be too bad. Actually, I'll make it 3 stories. The second one is last summer in August. We had a venturing aquatics weekend planned for the council, and there was a hurricane coming, and everybody wanted me to cancel it. I didn't cancel it. And as it turns out, the hurricanes can't read, and it kind of went past us last August, and it didn't matter. And we just had a gray morning, and it turned into a beautiful day. The last hurricane story that I'll relate is something that Kess and I experienced in 1985 at the National Boy Scout Jamboree. And what was the name of the hurricane, Kess?
I don't remember. I want to say Charlie, but that's not right.
So here we are in Fort A.P. Hill, Virginia. I was 17. Kess, I think you were probably about 16. The same, yep. 16. And we, the hurricane came through in the middle of the day, in the middle of the program, and I was standing in line to get my Apple IIe bag, and we just kind of rode it out, and everybody survived. So,
yeah, you got to be careful. I will say one last thing. Kim had put in here, the fact that you guys, the 12 of you, and I met some, this is what it's all about. This is kind of the roundtable, if you will. So somebody asked about, where do I get a list? Well, now you've got 12 other scout friends that you can bounce ideas off of. Different parts of Atlanta, different troop sizes, different troop makeups. So keep the email, contact me. Tina will have a list of everybody that came through. Yep. But we're all in this together. We all share ideas. This is how we grow the troop. This is how we grow the program, is bouncing off things that work and things that don't work. Like Michael said, and KP mentioned, when we did the SWC several years ago, we had 6 inches of snow and up at Woodruff. And I showed that to my scouts, and it made them feel at ease because they knew it was going to be a polar bear patch weekend camping. It was going to hit the mid-20s. but they felt comfortable. They're like, our scoutmaster's been in 0-degree weather with 6 inches of snow. He'll help us. We can, you know, and it makes their parents feel better. The parents like, okay, Mr. Stadler has done this. He can take care of my child. Because you have to remember, especially with the girls, a lot of these families have nothing involved, have never done scouts before. And so for them to send their 5th grade daughter off with a complete group of strangers, they have to have a lot of trust in you. And, you know, you earn it by showing them, like a lot of these kids will see all the knots on my uniform and they're like, what's that? And I said, that just means I've been trained. That means I can help you, whatever that certain knot was. The wood badge beads, I had one girl playing with them and I said, I served on staff. I was training other leaders. And they thought that was the coolest thing. Some scoutmasters say training knots is kind of silly. It should be all about the scouts. I disagree. I think we need to stay trained. We need to show them that we're getting trained. So that's why it's important for them to get trained. It's kind of hard to say go to ILST or go to NYLT if you haven't done the training as an adult yourself. And we do require for SPL at least first class. We don't have an age requirement because I've got some 13-year-olds that, like I said, are a 12-year-old. If we had a requirement of 14 or older, she wouldn't have been able to run, but she was the best candidate and it worked out great. But I do think they need to be first class or above. We're going to maybe make it a requirement that they've been in NYLT. That's just an option that we're considering because you really get a lot out of NYLT, National Youth Leadership Training. When we were growing up, it was green bar. It was kind of a different thing, but it is really a great way for your scouts to get that energy. The Methuselah stick where you have, you know, all these things they learn and bring back, and then they make new friends. And then they find friends and they join a crew because they saw some friends at NYLT. I've got several girls. One of my ASBLs is also vice president of the local crew here that Michael's part of. So she's dipped her feet in both waters and just loves it and just having a great time. You know, her parents have said she can't be SPL right now. She's got too much on her plate. I think that should be the youth's decision, but I'm not going to argue with mom and dad. There comes a point where you have to, they know what's best for their scout. So getting back to feedback and reviews, I'm happy to share what's worked for me. You've got at least 11 other people here that'll give you some guidance. So, you know, we can send out, Tina, do we have a way to capture everybody here or get emails? Or if you want us to add you to an email list, how do we make that happen?
Yeah, I've got everybody that's attended here. If you want to send your email, that would be great. And we will email you back and give you our contact information.
I have
ideas on where to do those campouts.
I have one last request. Raven, can you give us from the youth perspective what you see?
Yes.
We got to get Raven to come off mute.
We've asked.
Maybe she wandered away.
Yeah, she may have stepped away. We have any other youth on the phone?
Well, we're getting that up. Any other questions? I know we've pretty much hit our time allotment. I don't want to keep everybody all morning. But we're all in this together, so don't feel overwhelmed. Bobby, if you need anything, I'm always available. Everybody here, you know, we've got a lot of scouting history and we're happy to share. I jokingly laugh because people say, you're stealing all the good scouts in Cobb County. And I just tell them, no, I'm just putting on a good program. You know, just put on a good program, have fun, and they'll come. And I've always said, if you want to start a scout troop, I'm happy to help. Any way I can grow the program. Especially outside of East Cobb, that's where I really want to go is help, you know, in Decatur, help in Cumming. I've got friends in North Georgia Council that we share a lot of good ideas.
You can also go to the Atlanta BSA activities section. They have caving weekend, climbing weekends, cope, and shooting sport activity updates out there. So if you're looking to do some of those activities, you can get information there. You can also check out Southern Crescent District's webpage. There is a plethora of information, thanks to Bert Bender, for all types of scouting. Everything about Roundtable, places to go, scouting on demand. We've gathered a ton of places to go hike. So if you'd like to see a list there, I think I have 2 or 3 pages of places to go hike that they've shared with me. So I'll share that back out with you guys.
Tina, on that note, do we know if we're giving out the year annual planning book? I know in the past when this has been in person, there's been a really nice thick book we've given out with ideas every month on things to do, places to go, themes to maybe do. I think maybe we're doing that as a PDF. I don't know. I need to check.
Right. It's going to be a PDF, so you'll be able to download it. It will be available on the Atlanta BSA website under the program kickoff section. I believe it's going up today. That will tell you when all of your roundtables for each of your districts are being held. Some of them are doing them every other month. They may not meet as often. So some of them are still just virtual. Some are doing a mix of virtual and in person. If you have any questions about roundtable, reach out to us. Kes and I are always at a roundtable if we're not doing another scout meeting. And Fred Stemp, if you know him, he is a commissioner out of Button Gwinnett. He is our council roundtable commissioner and is happy to answer any questions there as well.
I love it. Kim just posted something. Bobby, that's great. 70 years of history. So you guys kind of have a plan in place, but it's always good to get a fresh approach and see what the scouts want to do. And Kim, that's awesome. 15 brand new girls. Fantastic. You got your hands full. I know.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, Tina, were you able to capture those emails as they come through?
Yes, I have got them.
So if anybody, unless anybody has any other questions, we'll call it a day. I'm glad to see everybody, and hopefully this was helpful. And this is what I love about scouting. I've got longtime friends. I didn't know Tina 10 years ago. Well, 5 years ago. I didn't know Michael 10 plus years ago. And now they've become good friends. And so now I feel like I've got new friends. I met you guys. And so, you know, just so you know, my name is, my initials, KES, is my legal name is Kenneth Edward Stadler. And I've had the nickname of Kes since I was born. So it's pretty easy to find me. And, you know, we're always here to help. I'm a Ted Vinson, Donna Vinson Eagle Scout from 144 on the square in Marietta. So a lot of history. Both my boys are Eagles. And, you know, we all have a lot of passion for the program. And we see what the value is for the youth, from the crew all the way down to the Tigers and younger. And so we just need to keep that excitement and energy going, and opportunities available. And the key is communication. We got to let these parents and let these people know what we're doing. We have an idea. I know what I want to do for every camp out, where I want to go and how I want it to run. But if I don't communicate that to the scouts and they don't make it happen, it doesn't matter. So getting it out there. All right. Well, I'm glad it was helpful. With that, I think we'll sign out. Any other questions?
No, this is great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Well, keep in touch. We're here for you. And it's always a great day for scouting. So go out and do